daily testing for the first 2 weeks of camp. If the return rate of positive cases is below 5%, then they will move to testing every other day. If it stays above, then it will remain daily, and test results will come back within 24 hours. And then Adam Schefter later in the day tweeted this, and it's as simple as that. NFL offered the NFLPA today to play 0 preseason games this summer per source, which is something we know that the players had wanted. And for more, let me bring in my crew this morning. Who we got bright and early today? Booger McFarland has made the trip this morning. Jeff Saturday will be here in a moment. And Dan Graziano, my insider, I will start with you. Dan, why was 0 preseason games so important to the players?
Well, first of all, Greeny, the players really thought that the playing any kind of preseason game was dumb this year because while the league is not in a bubble, they're kind of putting each team in its own sort of quote-unquote bubble where they're sanitizing the facility and they have procedures in place to try and keep people safe. So the idea of putting everybody on a plane, flying them to a different city, and then playing football with another team that's been in a different setup and risking transmission of the virus was silly for a game that doesn't count in the standings. So that was fundamentally their argument. But what this really comes down to is this training camp ramp-up period the players have been pushing for, 21 days of just strength and conditioning followed by 10 days of non-padded practices before they get into contact. The players want as long a ramp-up period as possible. They're coming off an off-season where they haven't done any on-field work, and preseason games would get in the way of that schedule. It's very difficult to schedule around preseason games. You don't practice the day before, you don't practice the day after, so effectively every preseason game takes 3 days away from your practice schedule. So getting rid of them will make it easier to have that longer ramp-up period as well.
So, Booger, let's talk about the impact this will have on the games that do count when they begin. We look at the preseason now for 2 different reasons. One, the back end of the roster, chances for those guys to try and prove themselves. Yeah. But how about the front end of the roster? How about, I'm thinking of a guy like Joe Burrow, who it may very well be the first snap he ever takes with NFL competition around him will be in his first regular season game. Will that have a big impact on his ability to perform quickly?
Yeah, Green, it's definitely going to have a huge impact. If you think about it, you can go through all the Zoom meetings you want. You can get out there and have your mom, dad, girlfriend call out plays. There's nothing like being in an NFL facility with NFL coaches around your peers, talking about the game, talking about what it's like to be in the huddle, what it's like to play in certain stadiums. More importantly, for Joe Burrow being a quarterback, he's got to command and get the respect of his teammates. And the only way you do that is you get in that huddle with 10 other guys and you look them in the eye. And they have to know that you're not afraid. They have to know that you're the guy that can lead them up and down the field. And you have to look them in the eye and show them that. And you can't do that through Zoom. You can't do that through throwing sessions in California. You have to be on the field, surrounded by your teammates. Everybody's watching, and they have to see you do your job. And for high-level players like Tua and Burrow, it's going to be tough early on. Now, with all that being said, there is still plenty of time. The football season is not a sprint, Greeny. It's a marathon. So these players, although they may be hampered early throughout the season, they'll have time to make it up.
How about the veteran guys? I'm thinking of Tom Brady in a brand new system. I'm thinking of Cam Newton in a brand new system, and maybe others. These are guys who've obviously been there, done that, seen practically everything. But for them, the first actual action that they will take will be in regular season games. Will this make a difference for them?
You know what, Green, as a quarterback, a little bit, because those guys have to get used to new terminology, new teammates, the timing, the rhythm, the chemistry. But when you talk about veteran players, listen, a slant route's a slant route. You may call it something different from one system to the next, but it's still a slant. And so for veteran quarterbacks like a Cam Newton, like a Tom Brady, yes, it'll take them a little while to get used to the terminology and where a receiver likes a ball or where a running back likes a swing route. But in the end, these guys have played a lot of football. So the ramp-up period for a veteran quarterback is going to be much shorter than, say, for a Burrow or a Tua.
You know, Dan, a lot of the work that gets done in preseason now takes place with when the teams practice together. They do training camp. They'll get together and do a lot of practicing together. And I think that the preseason has been devalued to a great extent in the last decade or so, and fans clearly don't like it. Is there any possibility in your mind that this is the beginning of a complete change in the way preseason is handled, to the extent that perhaps we see a time when there is no preseason in the NFL sometime in the near future?
Sadly, no. I would approve of such a plan. I think preseason games are a terrible thing, and they should be eliminated. But I don't think that's going to happen. In fact, when you read the new CBA that was just signed in March, there are stipulations about when the regular season goes to 17 games. Remember when we were talking about this, by the way, every day? When the regular season goes to 17 games, the preseason goes down to 3. So the owners still want to keep that slate of 20 gates, right, of 10 home games for each team, whether it's 8 in the regular season or 9 in the regular season, and then either 1 or 2 in the preseason. So, no, they still see them as a revenue source, and they do still see them as a real helpful evaluation tool. So I would be surprised if this was anything more than a one-year blip. Hopefully one-year blip. Hopefully we're still not dealing with this a year from now.
Now, bear in mind that the college teams play without a preseason. Booger, why did you applaud my question about the end of preseason?
Because, Greeny, none of the players want to play preseason games for the simple fact is this, Greeny, we don't get paid. Every player in the National Football League makes the same amount in the preseason. Let's just make up figures for a second. Every player, let's say, makes $2,000 a game in the preseason. Come the regular season, J.J. Watt's probably making $300,000 a game. So why in the hell would I want to play the same game for $2,000, probably $1,200 after taxes, when I'm normally making $300,000? Greeny, the preseason is kind of like playing a practice 9 holes of golf before the real match. Like, you can go out there and play it, but it doesn't really count. You can make 6 birdies, it doesn't count. Like, when you play in a practice round and you make 6 birdies, does anybody really care? No. People want to see what you do when the ropes go up on Thursday, so they can have preseason. I wish they would do away with it, and I'm pretty sure that if you talk to every player, they would say the same thing. Now, the owners, they love it because they make a ransom, a king's ransom in the preseason and the postseason because the players' salaries are capped and they all make the same thing in the preseason and the postseason.